Let's continue with these two images of Tim and Bruno, and let's build a composite image by using paths. Let's pick up the pen tool from the toolbox. In GIMP, the same tool is called Paths tool, and it looks like a pen. With the pen tool, start clicking around the area you want to select. Each click you make will create an anchor point. All these points will be connected, forming a path. As soon as you close your path by going all the way around the area you want to select and clicking back at your starting anchor point, you have marked an area contained by your path. But it's not really a selection at this stage. You don't see any marching ants indicating a selection. The path you have created, though, can be converted into a selection at any time. And more importantly, it can be saved, edited, and it will be there if you close your document and open it up again at a later time. In GIMP, in order for you to close a path, you need to press the Command key before you click on your starting anchor point. With the Command key pressed, as soon as you hover over the starting anchor point, you will see the cursor symbol change to two linked circles. That's when you can click on that last point and your path is now closed. To manage your paths, you need to visit the Paths window. If you don't have a Paths window open, you can always access it from Window, Paths in Photoshop, or in Windows Dockable Dialogs, Paths in GIMP. In the Paths window, you will see a new layer-looking object which contains the path you've just created. You can save this path and name it by going to the contextual menu of this panel and clicking on Save Path. This will allow you to give it a descriptive name and click OK. You can do the same in GIMP by going to the Paths window and double-clicking on this newly created object, which is the path you just formed. You can give this a name and hit Return on your keyboard. If you ever want to move on to a different task and you're stuck with this path line over your image, to get rid of it, you can go to the Paths window and click off of the layer of the path you created. Clicking on it again will show you the path. In GIMP, after you create a path, as soon as you switch to a different tool, the line will disappear. Now, I told you that when you have created a path, you can convert it to a selection at any time. Let me show you how to do that. In the Paths window, make sure you have your path selected, then go to the contextual menu and choose Make Selection. This dialog window will ask you how many pixels your feather radius should be. This can be as little as 0 if you want a hard line defining your selected area, but you can specify a larger number of pixels if you want a soft feathered look. You can also specify something like 0.5 pixels, and I think that's what I will do for my selection. It's preferable that you select the anti-aliasing option, and you can click OK. In GIMP, if you have picked up a different tool and then you want to activate a path and make a selection out of it, you need to go to your path and turn on the eyeball so that the path shows up on your canvas. You can then go to your contextual menu and under Paths menu, go to Path to Selection. If you want to hide a path outlined from your canvas, you can click on the eyeball again to hide it. Once we have a selection, we can copy and paste this. Bruno's lips will be now on a separate layer. I will press Command T for free transform. In GIMP, you can use the Scale tool, Rotate tool, and Move tool for these operations. And I will resize, rotate, and move Bruno's lips and place them over Tim's mouth here. As you can see, the result is much better than when I used the eraser to create this sort of composite earlier. To select individual points and move them, pick up the Direct Selection tool. If you accidentally pick up the Path Selection tool, you won't be able to manipulate each point separately, but the whole path altogether. So make sure you have picked the Direct Selection tool, the white arrow. With it, click on a point to move it. In GIMP, you don't need to pick up a different tool in order to manipulate the anchor points you have created. With the pen tool itself, you can pick any of the points and adjust their position around the area you're marking. To remove points from your path, go to the pen tool, click and hold so you can choose the Delete Anchor Point tool. With this, you can click on any existing point of your path to remove it. Similarly, under the pen tool, you can also find the Add Anchor Point tool, which you can use to click on your path and add points to it, which you can later move around if you need to with the Direct Selection tool. In GIMP, as you're using your pen tool, you can add points to your path by pressing Command on the keyboard and clicking on your path where you would like the anchor point to be added. To remove a point, you can simply click on any of your existing anchor points and hit Delete on the keyboard. Now let me show you one more thing that you can do while creating a path. This works the same way both in Photoshop and in GIMP. As you are using the pen tool to add anchor points around the area of interest, if you find that your selection is rounded, you can click, hold, and drag a bit. This will create a handlebar crossing through your anchor point with handles at its ends, which you can later grab and adjust in order to adjust the curvature going through your anchor point. You would want to make curve adjustments after you've closed off your path, and I will show you how in a minute. Let me complete this path before we go to the next step. To adjust the curvature you just created, you will need to pick up the Direct Selection tool, click on your path to activate it so you can see all the points, and select the anchor point you want to make adjustments to. Now that you can see the handlebar you created, you can click on its endpoints to make your adjustments. If you have already created an anchor point without clicking and holding, and you later decide you wanted to create a curve at that point, it's not too late to change that. In Photoshop, you will need to go to the toolbox and grab the Convert Point tool. With this tool, click on the path so you can see where all the points are, and then click and drag on the anchor point you want to convert. Your action of dragging will create a handlebar. If you use the same tool on an anchor point that already had a handlebar, you will convert it to a regular anchor point without one. In GIMP, handlebars and curvatures can be created by clicking and dragging on any segments of your path that lies between anchor points. This, however, will create broken handlebars, which can be used to adjust curvature only on one side of the anchor point and not the other. By pressing Shift while doing this will create the symmetrical bar. Holding Shift will allow you to also manipulate it symmetrically by clicking and dragging on its handles. If you decide that you want to get rid of the handlebars from a specific anchor point, select it so that the handlebar is visible, and then press Command and Shift on the keyboard and hover over the handlebar ends. Your pen tool will indicate a minus sign next to it, at which point you can click and remove them. Lastly, I wanted to show you that if you make a selection with any other selection tool and you have your marching ants showing, in order for you to have this saved along with your document so you can reselect it later if you wish, you can convert this selection to a path. And as we now know, paths are saved within your Photoshop or GIMP document. To do this, after you have made your selection, go to the Paths window, click on the contextual menu, and make Work Path. Enter the pixel radius, I will choose 0.5, and click OK. You now have a path made out of your selection. In GIMP, once you have a selection, go to your Paths window, go to the contextual menu, then Paths menu, and choose Selection to Path. If you save your document and reopen it, you will see that your path is still there, and you can load your selection by clicking on the path in the Paths window, going to the contextual menu, and choosing Make Selection. You will again be asked about the feather radius and anti-aliasing, and you can click OK for the selection to be loaded.